What I'm about to say is incredibly cynical. But when you move to Israel like I did, one of the culture codes you immediately learn while living in the Jewish state is that cynicism comes with your Welcome to the Holy Land kit. Now, for the cynicism, many countries, including the United States, Canada, Australia, France, the United Kingdom, Germany, Hungary, South Africa, Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina, have historically chosen to be friendly with Israel because most Jews in these countries have historically been Zionists. And since these countries are democracies, certain political parties in them wanted and still want to court their Jews' votes and/or political donations. Therefore, they supported Israel. I am overly simplifying this picture. There's much more nuance to it than I just suggested. Countries have also been friendly with Israel because of, for example, security defense and economic pacts, among other reasons. But we cannot ignore or understate the fact that currying favor with Zionist Jews, which is the vast majority of Jews in the aforementioned countries for their votes, is part of the diplomatic relations with Israel picture. Over time, political parties in almost every country change or at least evolve or become modified. A lot of this has to do with demographic changes, but not only. And a lot of demographic changes have to do with immigration policies, which tend to be pretty liberal in many Western countries. As demographics change, and as constituents within certain locales change as well, so do political parties, or at least the political parties that eye these constituents. Yet many Jews have not updated their beliefs or perspectives based on certain political parties' changes and/or modifications. There are many reasons for these Jews to be stuck in a world that does not exist like it used to. First, change is emotionally and psychologically difficult to process, especially as people age. Second, many Jews are not one-dimensional voters. There are many different issues and factors that go into their voting decision-making process, and I get it. We all have different parts of our lives, our identities, and/or our communities that we value on a sliding scale. I try not to judge people in general because their sociopolitical priorities are different from mine, and vice versa. To each their own. But for those Jews who have Israel as one of their top 2 or 3 socio-political priorities, a key way to keep politicians engaged in a positive relationship with Israel is to use one's leverage, which is typically a vote and, in some cases, political donations. If politicians think they can get away with, at best, taking Israel for granted, and at worst, disparaging the Jewish state, without any repercussions, they will do so, especially if it will win them votes and/or political donations. Indeed, we have seen many politicians and their parties engage in this very behavior since October 7th, and we have seen many Jews continue to support these politicians and their parties. This is despite these Jewish voters' claims that Israel is one of their top socio-political priorities. That makes about as much sense as so-called progressives who support jihadists? None. Of course, people tend to be emotional voters who find ways to rationalize why/how they voted after the fact. But if you, like me, try to make mostly rational decisions, even when there are strong emotions involved, then we should at least try to make and carry out decisions in sensible ways. I am a dual Israeli-American citizen. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. So I had skin in the game in last November's U.S. presidential election, in which Donald Trump and the Republican Party emerged victorious. I wanted Trump and the Republican Party to win, not because I like Trump or think he is a great guy, or because I am staunch, dogmatic Republican. I simply wanted them to win because I thought that many parts of the Democratic Party have taken for granted America's relationship with Israel. And even worse, they have openly disparaged the Jewish state and its people, as well as made it less safe for Jews in America lately. I am not stupid. I know that many of these Democratic politicians are not anti-Semites. They have just been trying to appeal to certain voters and political donors who like to hear about Israel and/or Jews in a negative light. But if you are going to throw me as a Jew and one of my countries, Israel, under the bus to court someone else, that's fine. Do what you have to do. But I will not overlook that. I will go with the party and politicians who give me more hope, even if just slightly more, about Jews in America and its relationship with Israel. A lot of Jewish Democrats have griped that the Republicans feature a long history of anti Semitism. And they were just saying, what sounds good to Jewish/Israeli ears during the most recent election cycle? That is true. There is no perfect party for Jews and Zionists in America. It really is a pick your poison scenario, if I'm still given the license to be cynical. But right now, given that the last 4 years have been under a Democratic Party-run White House, and given that many negative things were done and said, and many positive things were not done and said, about Israel and even Jews by many Democrats since October 7th, 2023, I am slightly more optimistic about Jews in America and the Israeli-American relationship with the Republicans at this very point in time. This can very well change in the future. Perhaps the Republicans were all talk and renege on their promises. Only time will tell. And if it turns out that they were predominantly all talk, I will happily shop around my vote and political contributions to whichever party and politicians I feel best serve Jews in America and the Israeli-American relationship when the time comes. And that is really the point of this essay. I am not here to preach incessant support or apologies for a certain candidate or political party. I am here to make sure that, in my minuscule way, no politician takes their Jews and the Jewish state for granted because, as a voter, that is one of my most important socio-political priorities. For those Jews who prioritize other socio-political ahead of the Jews and Israel, that is totally fine. Once upon a time, I had different socio-political priorities, and I am sure mine will change again in the future. But for now, just 15 months removed from October 7th, and with anti-Semitism exploding across many Western countries, I feel a deep sense of urgency. The safety, security, and future of the Jewish people in Israel are not abstract issues to me. They are deeply personal and existential. I believe that we are at a crossroads where the choices we make as voters and advocates will reverberate for generations. It is not about blind loyalty to any party or politician. It is about holding them accountable to the principles and values that safeguard our communities and ensure that the lessons of history are not forgotten. As political landscapes shift and alliances evolve, I remain committed to making informed choices that reflect my priorities. I urge others, regardless of where they stand on the political spectrum, to approach these issues with the same clarity of purpose. Because, at the end of the day, democracy thrives when every voter demands to be heard, and no community is taken for granted.